Tonight, laying out the framework to guarantee peace in Ukraine.
This is not a moment for more talk. It's time to act.
What the UK and France are doing to stop the fighting.
We're going to continue to be there to support Ukraine as necessary.
And where Canada stands following the European Defence Summit. The countdown to tariffs, with Canada's economy hanging in the balance.
There are going to be tariffs on Tuesday on Mexico and Canada.
What it will mean for a Vermont city with an historic relationship with its northern neighbor.
It's going to be devastating to have to deal with that.
Also, Canadian Dave returns home, what the veteran shared with his community after months in a Taliban prison.
It's lovely to see all my friends and families.
Plus, the most magical mermaid.
I will call her a force of nature, a fabulous force of nature.
How a meaningful piece of driftwood transformed into an unexpected tribute.
I've actually kind of inhabited that wood a little bit.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Europe is rallying around Ukraine's president tonight, calling for a coalition of nations to support a plan for lasting peace. Zelensky was part of a defense summit in London this weekend, just days after that stunning exchange in the Oval Office. CTV's Mike LeCouture reports from London tonight.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is leading what he calls a coalition of the willing, which he says will include British boots on the ground and planes in the air to secure peace in Ukraine. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau would not commit to doing the same.
We're not going to get ahead of the discussions on how to keep a peace that isn't yet in place. But Canada will be there and is open to doing what is necessary.
Now, Trudeau did point to Canada's ongoing training of Ukrainian troops as a key contribution since Russia's invasion. Still, the head of the European Commission says the continent must urgently rearm.
It's basically turning Ukraine into a steel porcupine that is indigestible for potential invaders.
European leaders insist they are at a crossroads, and it's why Starmer says he's taking the lead.
It's time to act, time to step up and lead, and to unite around a new plan for a just and enduring peace.
The UK and France are leading the push to work on a ceasefire plan to present to the United States. Despite being such a key part of this, no American representative was at today's summit.
The only way it ends is if Vladimir Putin comes to a negotiating table. And right now, President Trump is the only person on earth who has any chance whatsoever of bringing him to a table to see what it is he would be willing to end the war on.
You're gambling with World War III.
Even after Friday's now infamous confrontation in the Oval Office, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky believes the U.S. is still a partner. And he says Ukraine remains ready to sign a minerals deal with President Donald Trump.
Ukraine perceives the United States as its partner, a strategic partner. This is important for us.
All the while, allies continue to warn the U.S. Russia's president can't be trusted.
Vladimir Putin is a liar and a criminal and cannot be trusted to keep his word in any way, shape, or form, because he has demonstrated time and time again that he will break any agreements.
Despite that, Zelensky understands in order to achieve peace, Russia needs to be part of the process. But he insists Ukraine must also have a seat at the negotiation table. Heather?
Mike LeCouture in London tonight. Immediately following that defense summit, the Ukrainian president met with another world leader. Zelensky receiving a warm welcome from King Charles today at His Majesty's Sandringham estate. Zelensky saying he was grateful for the meeting and the King's support of Ukraine. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will have his turn to meet with King Charles tomorrow. There is hope it could lead to public support as Buckingham Palace remains quiet on President Trump's persistent attacks on Canada's sovereignty. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has more on that.
He's on our currency, and our political and legal systems rely on the monarchy. King Charles III is Canada's head of state, But when asked to comment on ramped-up rhetoric by U.S. President Donald Trump, repeatedly attacking Canada's sovereignty, "This is not something we would comment on," wrote a Buckingham Palace royal communications official in an email to CTV News.
It's fair for people to wonder where is the King of Canada, or where is the Crown in this moment of international tension? But in our system of government, we don't have the monarch, or in Canada, the monarch's representative, the Governor General, operating as free agents.
A comment from the King would require a request from the Canadian government. The Prime Minister is set to meet with His Majesty tomorrow.
We will discuss matters of importance to Canada and to Canadians, and I can tell you that nothing seems more important to Canadians right now than standing up for our sovereignty and our independence as a nation.
Canada's High Commissioner to the UK says Buckingham Palace shouldn't give Trump's talk much attention.
It is so preposterous that it doesn't merit serious comment.
In a visit to Washington this week, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer evaded questions on the issue.
You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist.
He also presented Trump with a letter from His Majesty the King.
It's an invitation for a second state visit.
Canada's allies have so far seemingly been reluctant to come to Canada's defense.
I do not understand why there has been this bullying and trolling of Canada. I mean, it is completely, I think it's baffling to everyone around the world.
When the Prime Minister meets with His Majesty tomorrow, you can expect plenty of attention will be paid to whether the King makes any comment that could help push back against attacks on our sovereignty by President Trump. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you for this. An economic attack on Canada could begin in just 48 hours when Donald Trump is supposed to slap a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. But officials on this side of the border say they still don't know any firm details as American officials offer mixed messages. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
It's the question on the mind of every Canadian. Will Donald Trump impose across-the-board tariffs Tuesday, or will Canada find another last-minute escape?
The challenge, I think, is we have no guarantees as to what the outcome will be on Monday or Tuesday.
Trump is threatening to impose a 25% tax on all incoming Canadian goods and 10% on Canadian energy. A visit to Washington this week didn't offer Ottawa any answers. Today, the U.S. Commerce Secretary insisted tariffs are coming.
There are going to be tariffs on Tuesday on Mexico and Canada. Exactly what they are, we're going to leave that for the president and his team to negotiate.
But at the same time, another top American official offered Canada a potential way out by matching a Mexican offer to mirror U.S. tariffs on China.
We haven't heard from the Canadians, but I think that'd be a very good start.
Which would avoid tariffs that are supposed to go out on Tuesday.
We'll see.
Melanie Joly previously said Canada would be willing to consider similar action. Tuesday is just the first tariff deadline. March 12th, Trump has threatened to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. In early April, Trump has promised reciprocal tariffs. And yesterday, the president turned his eyes to lumber, ordering a new study on the possible damage lumber imports are causing the U.S., setting the stage for more potential tariffs.
We will have a strong, unequivocal, and proportional response as Canadians expect.
Meanwhile, the opposition is calling for more focus on interprovincial trade.
Regardless of what the president does, though, we can't rely on him, and we can't rely on the Americans anymore.
The U.S. Commerce Secretary says Canada has done reasonable work on the border, but adds as long as fentanyl continues to flow south, the tariffs are still needed. Heather.
All right, Colton, thank you. The tariff talk is fracturing ties with our southern neighbors. A little later in the show, we put the spotlight on an American town, once known as Little Canada, to see how tariff worries are impacting life in that community. There are calls for accountability tonight in the wake of a tragic and bizarre snowmobile accident in Nova Scotia. A man died after being hit by a fire truck that was called to the scene to help him following a crash. His family and community are devastated and demanding answers. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
tragedy has struck this picturesque Nova Scotia community. 28-year-old Blake Nicholson from nearby Spring Hill survived a snowmobile crash on February 21st, but was later killed when he was hit by the fire truck responding to the 911 call. The pain of their loss still fresh, Nicholson's friends and extended family members attended this organized protest at the local RCMP detachment.
I'm looking for justice for my fiance, my son, and his entire family.
According to the RCMP, Nicholson was waiting for medical assistance when he was killed by the fire truck. The Collingwood and District Volunteer Fire Department has dismissed Chief Gerald Cotton and Acting Chief Andrea Bishop over the incident. The municipality confirmed to CTV News Cotton was driving the truck when Nicholson was killed. Family and community members are devastated and angry. They are demanding more accountability and transparency from the RCMP.
We just want some answers. We just need, no one's telling anybody anything and they're just all hiding. We just want somebody to say something and take accountability for all this. Because anybody would if it was their brother.
Someone needs to speak up. Somebody
and
needs
nobody
to speak
is.
Up. And no one's speaking up. It needs to be spoken up.
The investigation is ongoing, and the RCMP is asking the public for assistance when it comes to gathering new information. They also told CTV News it's not believed drugs or alcohol were factors. Nicholson's family says the slowness of the investigation with minimal details released is adding to their grief.
Represent my family, this family.
We are one family, we aren't two, so we're here together.
Grieving together, demanding a swifter response from the RCMP, and praying that a tragedy like this never happens again. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Amherst, Nova Scotia.
Tensions are building in the Middle East, where Israel has blocked all humanitarian aid into Gaza. Aid trucks were lined up today in front of Egypt's Rafah border crossing. Israel says it will stop all humanitarian aid into Gaza until Hamas agrees to a ceasefire extension to halt fighting through Ramadan and Passover. Phase 1 of the ceasefire plan expired on Saturday. Pope Francis once again skipped the Sunday noon blessing, but is said to be in stable condition, according to the Vatican. The 88-year-old pontiff suffered a severe respiratory issue on Friday, requiring non-invasive ventilation. He has been in hospital for more than 2 weeks, fighting double pneumonia. Dave Lavery, better known as Canadian Dave, spent 77 days in Kabul as a prisoner of the Taliban. Now back in Ontario, the veteran is sharing his experience as he reconnects with members of his community. CTV's Josh Morano has his story.
It's surreal, but
it's a day many thought would never come, or at least not this soon. But after he was held captive by the Taliban for 2 months, Dave Lavery is coming home.
It's lovely to see all my friends and families. You know, you could feel the love and you can feel the genuine care, you know, and I felt that even when I was in my cell.
Known as Canadian Dave for his work rescuing more than 100 families in Kabul with Canadian ties, Lavery was kidnapped and thrown in jail by the Taliban, who thought he was a government spy.
Coming back and just experiencing normal environment, normal life, the cold, driving, being able to go to a restaurant, seeing people when I want to see people, laying in bed with my wife now.
We are strong. We family is strong. I'm proud. My husband, he goes through this really tough situation. I'm really proud of him.
With help from his wife, along with the Canadian and Qatari governments, Lavery was freed from Kabul on January 26th. From there, they went to their current home in Dubai before traveling to his hometown of Winnipeg, then to Vancouver. Now, Lavery is back in Perth, where he spent 30 years of his life with the armed forces, greeting friends at the Legion and retelling stories of his time in captivity.
Physically, to be able to see them, sit down and thank them, you know, I felt so bad by putting everybody in this situation. I really did. Even though I didn't do anything wrong, it still was hard on me.
During those 77 days, much of the time I felt like I was there with him. And I don't know whether he was able to sense that or not, but hopefully he got some comfort from my thoughts.
Now that Lavery is home, he says his time in Kabul is over, but adds he's not done helping those in need.
We still have operations and support in Ukraine, etc. But I'm going to slow down a little bit and take a little more of a break here and do a little more, delegate, because I was doing a lot of my own stuff on my own.
Josh Morano, CTV News, Perth.
Coming up, concerns over cross-border connections.
25% is a massive, massive fee for us to pay.
Will tariffs sever a bond built by common roots? We're in Vermont after the break. Plus, the beloved piece of Driftwood and its unexpected transformation. Vice President J.D. Vance was in the state of Vermont for a ski trip this weekend, and the visit generated all kinds of reactions. Hundreds gathered to protest his visit after Friday's Oval Office blowout with Ukraine's president. They lined the streets near a ski resort where he was vacationing with family. Many held banners in support of Ukraine, while others protested the war in Gaza and immigrant rights. At least one sign read, "Trump policies harm Americans." Canada has a very close relationship with the people of Vermont, one forged by geography, history, and economics. For many, in a small town in the heart of the state, tariffs are a tough sell. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Bushman traveled south to speak with Americans in a place once known as Little Canada.
Winooski sits in the heart of Vermont. It's not exactly a border town. Madame Perron. But some here with deep roots in Canada fear tariffs threaten deep ties forged generations ago.
We're talking about the tariffs today.
Yeah, that's so, it's such a, c'est bouleversant.
It's upsetting, says Ramon Perron. Born and raised in the U.S., though, her ancestors are Canadian.
Why is it, I mean, it's sort of like you see that.
Because we were so close to Canada.
Vermont's largest trading partner is Canada. Ottawa says imports and exports support 17,300 jobs in the state, and Canadian companies employ 2,050 people. Businesses like J Skis are bracing for impact.
Got the keychains on the bottom.
Its award-winning handcrafted skis designed in Vermont are made in Canada. Manufactured at a cutting-edge company in Rimouski, Quebec.
25% is a massive, massive fee for us to pay to get those skis here. And the margins in the ski industry are pretty slim to begin with.
But drawing a dividing line across the border goes far beyond the bottom line in Winooski.
You guys want to take us? We can join up.
A maple leaf flies over the city once nicknamed Petit Canada, Little Canada.
You can see the names, Rushlow.
In the late 1800s and early 1900s, many Quebecers crossed the border, settling near textile mills.
They came down here for work, jobs. The mills provided jobs.
Since many mills have shut down, and the American president says tariffs will bring back a golden age to America. Still in Winooski, with the passage of time, fewer and fewer people speak French, but there are still signs of the legacy of close ties with Canada.
We hope we maintain a very high level of friendship with the Canadians. We're related to a lot of them.
And many here say that they hope this is just temporary, that the long-standing friendship will outlast this moment. Geneviève Bushman, CTV News, Winooski, Vermont.
Still ahead tonight. Hollywood's Golden Night. We check in on the Academy Awards next. Bad blood between Canadians and our American neighbors boiling over once again last night at a sporting event in Toronto. Fans clearly booing the Star-Spangled Banner at the start of the WWE Elimination Chamber event. Canadians have been jeering America's anthem since Donald Trump began his talk of tariffs and annexing Canada. And Canadian actor Mike Myers also taking a shot at Trump's comments about making Canada the 51st state last night on Saturday Night Live. Myers took to the stage for the show's goodbye, wearing a T-shirt proclaiming Canada is not for sale. Well, the Academy Awards got underway tonight with a big win for Canadian talent.
The Oscar goes to Dune Part 2!
Canadian visual effects supervisors Stephen James and Rhys Selcombe won an Oscar for their work on Dune Part 2, directed by Canadian Denis Villeneuve. For a full list of all of the winners, head to ctvnews.ca. Well, still ahead, meet the fabulous Doreen, the memorable beach find, and the Driftwood artist bringing it to life. We leave you tonight with an unexpected tribute, a meaningful piece of driftwood donated to an artist who transformed it into a large sculpture with a surprising connection. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky.
While Adele Hatch can walk to the water now, she recalls being driven there as a child, thanks to her mom Doreen being the only woman on the street with a license.
Every other woman and the kids were stuck at home unless the husbands took them.
So Doreen would regularly squeeze Adele and her sisters, plus a few of her friends, into the back of her Beetle and embark on an adventure at the beach.
I will call her a force of nature, a fabulous force of nature.
During one of those beach days, Doreen discovered a remarkable piece of driftwood, strapped it on the Beetle, and drove it to her garden, where it sat on display for more than 30 years.
It was wonderful.
After Doreen died, Adele showcased the log in her yard for 2 decades, until she happened upon the work of driftwood artist Tanya Bob and offered it to her.
And I said, you'll do much more with it than I will ever do.
So Tanya gratefully accepted it, and like her previous work, expected to use it as a component in the construction of some sort of creature.
I would sort of look at the thing and I'm like, no, it's not a bear. And then I'd be like, okay, come back 2 months later. I don't see a Sasquatch here.
It wasn't until a year later that Tanya finally saw it as kelp waving in the water, was inspired to start bending chicken wire into a shape she could perch on top of the stump, and eventually made a massive mermaid that she named the Fabulous Doreen.
And I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Adele couldn't believe 2 things. First, she'd never told Tanya about Doreen's passion.
My mother loved mermaids, absolutely loved them.
And second, Adele had never shown Tanya any photos of her mom, let alone this picture of Doreen perched on a wall with her arms stretched out in a strikingly similar pose.
I couldn't believe that that was basically my mom in mermaid form.
And while it could be coincidence, and certainly serendipity, maybe, they say, it's something more magical.
I think she kind of inhabited that wood a little bit and was a little bit whispering in my ear.
But no matter the explanation, Tanya's donating proceeds of its sale to a charity in Doreen's name, and Adele is hoping whoever takes the mermaid home is inspired to be fabulous in the same way Doreen was.
Find something you enjoy and bring that joy to others as well.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Victoria.
A beautiful tribute. That is our newscast. Thank you for watching. I hope you can join Sandy and Omar tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Friday. Good night.